Ferrari did almost everything perfectly at Spa. Charles Leclerc took the lead. The strategy worked. The pit stop worked. George Russell was already out of the race. And Mercedes still came back. Kimi Antonelli hunted Leclerc down, passed him with 10 laps remaining, and won by 1.952 seconds. Then Fred Vasseur exposed the truth: Ferrari could no longer hide. Mercedes had the quicker car. Ferrari was losing on the straights. And the 73-point championship gap was not being created by one lucky result, but by a technical advantage Ferrari could interrupt with strategy, yet could not stop with speed. Because Mercedes was not beating Ferrari with one secret button. It was beating Ferrari through stronger acceleration, more effective hybrid deployment, lower resistance, and a complete system that kept giving Antonelli another chance to attack. Ferrari could win the start. Ferrari could win the strategy. But when the race reached the moment that mattered most, Mercedes could simply take the lead back. Subscribe to the channel. Ferrari's problem at Spa did not begin when Antonelli made the pass. It began much earlier. It began the moment Ferrari reached the front and still could not make the race feel safe. That is the part Vasseur's admission exposed. Leclerc had track position. He had clean air. Ferrari had executed the opening phase brilliantly. But even with everything working in their favor, the Mercedes remained close enough to keep the pressure alive. And that pressure changed the entire race. A driver leading with the fastest car can control the pace. He can protect the tires. He can choose where to use electrical energy. He can manage the gap. A driver leading with a slower car has a completely different job. He is not managing the race. He is defending against it. Every corner exit becomes critical. Every straight becomes a threat. Every battery decision matters. Every small mistake creates an opening. That was Leclerc's reality. He was ahead, but he was not free. Antonelli was behind, but he was not trapped. That difference is what Mercedes had created. Ferrari's advantage existed in position. Mercedes' advantage existed in performance. And performance can keep rebuilding the opportunity long after strategy has changed the order. That is why Antonelli did not need to panic. He lost the lead. Then Ferrari gained through the virtual safety car. Still, the Mercedes remained dangerous. The car had enough pace to recover. Enough efficiency to stay close. Enough straight-line performance to keep asking the same question. How long could Leclerc defend? At first, Ferrari appeared to have the answer. Leclerc drove cleanly. He protected the tires. He placed the car carefully. He used the available energy to stop Antonelli from getting the easiest run. But every defensive lap carried a cost. The battery had to be managed around the threat. The tires had to survive compromised lines. The driver had to prepare for attacks before they fully developed. That creates pressure even when the rival does not attempt a pass. The faster car does not need to attack every lap. It only needs to remain close enough to force the slower car into defensive decisions. And those decisions begin consuming resources. Leclerc might use more electrical energy earlier than planned. He might choose a tighter line into a corner. That line could protect the inside. It could also weaken the exit. A weaker exit makes the next straight more dangerous. Then more battery must be used. The defense creates the next problem. That is how a straight line deficit spreads through the complete lap. It does not remain confined to one speed trap. It changes braking. It changes tire use. It changes the racing line. It changes the energy plan. It changes how much freedom the driver has. Mercedes was not only gaining on the straights. It was forcing Ferrari to shape the entire race around those straights. That is a much deeper advantage. And Vasseur's words made that clear. He praised Ferrari's execution. The start. The strategy. The pit stop. The chassis progress. Those were the reasons Ferrari could fight. But they were also the clues that Ferrari needed almost everything to be right. Mercedes did not. Antonelli could lose track position and recover. Ferrari had to create track position and then protect it. One team had room for the race to go wrong. The other needed the race to remain favorable. That is the difference between a car that can challenge and a car that can control. Ferrari could challenge Mercedes at Spa. Mercedes still controlled the underlying pace. And the circuit made that difference impossible to hide forever. Spa rewards more than maximum speed. It rewards the complete path toward that speed. The driver exits a corner. The rear tires must grip. The car begins accelerating. The battery deploys electrical power. The combustion engine contributes. The active aerodynamics reduce resistance. The car keeps building speed. Every stage matters. If Ferrari loses a little traction, it begins the straight behind. If it carries slightly more drag, the acceleration becomes weaker. If the hybrid system deploys less effectively, another fraction disappears. If the battery support fades earlier, the loss grows near the braking zone. Then the Mercedes arrives. Not through one miracle. Through several small advantages adding together. That is why the final pass was only the visible ending. The attack had been developing for several laps. Antonelli was studying where the Ferrari was weaker. He was learning where Leclerc deployed energy. He was watching the exits. He was waiting for the moment when Mercedes could combine the slipstream, the electrical power, and the lower resistance into one decisive run. That is what a faster car allows. Patience. The driver does not need to force the first opening. He can wait for a better one. Leclerc did not have the same luxury. Every lap ahead required work. Every lap brought another possibility of attack. Every lap demanded another calculation. That is exhausting. Not physically alone. Mentally. The leading driver must watch the mirrors. Listen to the team. Protect the battery. Manage the tires. Hit every apex. Prepare for the next straight. The chasing driver can focus on one thing. Closing. That difference matters more as the race develops. One car becomes more defensive. The other becomes more confident. And confidence changes how a driver uses the machine. Antonelli could preserve the tires because he knew the straight line advantage would create another chance. He did not need to overdrive every corner. He could remain close enough. Protect the car. Wait. Then attack. Leclerc had to extract everything while also protecting the position. That is a far more difficult balance. Push too hard, and the tires suffer. Protect too much, and the Mercedes closes. Use too much battery, and the next lap becomes weaker. Save too much, and the attack comes immediately. Ferrari's technical deficit became a strategic prison. There were choices. None were comfortable. And that is why the race looked close while the control remained unequal. The final gap was less than 2 seconds. That sounds small. But the final number does not reveal how much Leclerc had to spend to remain ahead. It does not reveal how many defensive decisions were made. It does not reveal how much battery energy Ferrari used. It does not reveal how the tires changed under pressure. It does not reveal whether Antonelli had more pace available after the pass. Once the Mercedes moved ahead, Antonelli did not need to prove the maximum advantage. He only needed to finish. That makes the final margin misleading. The real evidence existed before the pass. How quickly the gap reduced. Where the Mercedes gained. How often Ferrari had to defend. How the energy usage changed. How long Antonelli could remain close without damaging the tires. That is where the secret advantage lived. And the season had already been pointing toward it. Ferrari had struggled with straight-line performance from the beginning. Vasseur had acknowledged the deficit. At one stage, Ferrari had been around 8 tenths behind. Then 6. Then closer to 4. That showed progress. But it also revealed the size of the original problem. 4 tenths is still significant. And the remaining time was not sitting in one obvious place. It was spread across the complete system. Ferrari could not simply add power. It could not simply remove wing. It could not simply deploy more battery. Every simple solution created another weakness. Reduce wing, and the car gained speed. But the corners become more difficult. Use more electrical energy, and less remains later. Increase cooling, and drag may rise. Reduce cooling, and reliability becomes a risk. Improve traction, and tire temperature may become harder to control. This is why Vasseur kept talking about small steps. Ferrari was building performance through connection. A better floor. A more stable rear. A cleaner aerodynamic platform. Improved energy use. Better balance. One change might be worth only a fraction. Several changes together could stop Mercedes from rebuilding the attack. But that process takes time. And Mercedes was not waiting. Antonelli was already winning. The championship gap was already growing. Mercedes already had the faster car. Ferrari was trying to catch a target that continued moving. That is the cruelest part of Formula One development. A team can improve and still fall behind. Ferrari can find 2 tenths. Mercedes can find 1. The gap closes, but not enough. Ferrari can improve the chassis. Mercedes can improve reliability. Ferrari can reduce drag. Mercedes can refine deployment. The target never stops. That is why Spa was both encouraging and alarming for Ferrari. Encouraging, because the car performed better than expected. The chassis upgrades were working. Ferrari could fight on a circuit it had feared. Leclerc could lead. The strategy group could create a genuine opportunity. Alarming, because Mercedes still won. And Mercedes did it after losing Russell on the opening lap. That detail changes the meaning of the result. One Mercedes was gone. Ferrari no longer had to cover 2 strategies. No second silver car could extend the stint. No second driver could force an undercut. No teammate could protect Antonelli. The tactical pressure became simpler. And still, Ferrari could not stop the remaining Mercedes. That should worry everyone inside Maranello. Because a fully reliable Mercedes weekend could be much harder. Russell might have pressured Leclerc. He could have forced Ferrari to stop earlier. He could have created a second strategic threat. He could have placed Hamilton under pressure. Mercedes could have split the cars. One could attack. The other could extend. Ferrari faced only one principal Mercedes at the front. It still lost. That means the gap may be larger than the podium suggests. And Mercedes has already identified reliability as the main weakness. If that weakness is corrected, Ferrari loses one of the few opportunities still available. That creates urgency. Ferrari must close the performance gap before Mercedes closes the reliability gap. And the championship numbers make that urgency impossible to ignore. Mercedes had opened a 73-point advantage in the Constructors' Championship. Antonelli led the drivers' standings. Leclerc was still far behind. Those gaps were not created by one dramatic domination. They were built through repeated small differences. One qualifying position. One stronger straight. One extra strategic option. One race where Mercedes recovered. One weekend where Ferrari needed perfection. That is how championships disappear. Not always through one crushing defeat. Sometimes through a car that is slightly stronger every time the result matters. Ferrari had become better. The standings still moved away. That is a dangerous psychological stage. The team sees progress. The points say the rival is escaping. The upgrades work. The victory does not arrive. The car fights. Mercedes still wins. That can create pressure inside every department. The aerodynamic group wants more efficiency. The power unit group wants better deployment. The chassis engineers want stronger traction. The strategy team wants better qualifying position. The drivers want a car they do not need to overdrive. Every department sees part of the problem. The challenge is connecting those parts. Because Mercedes' advantage appears to be exactly that. Connection. The chassis supports the exit. The exit creates momentum. The battery adds acceleration. The aerodynamics preserve the speed. The driver gains confidence. The confidence protects the tires. The tires allow another attack. One strength supports the next. Ferrari may be improving individual elements. It still needs the full chain. And that is why copying one visible Mercedes strength may not be enough. Ferrari can reduce drag. But if the rear becomes unstable, the gain disappears. It can increase deployment. But if the battery empties earlier, the next straight becomes weaker. It can create more downforce. But if the resistance rises, the speed deficit returns. The solution must be integrated. That is the hardest kind of solution. It cannot be rushed easily. It must work in qualifying, in race trim, in traffic, in clean air, with different tires, at different temperatures, across different circuits. A change that helps at Spa may hurt at Monaco. A change that improves one lap may damage a full stint. Ferrari needs performance that travels. That is what championship cars have. Not only one strength. Adaptability. Mercedes showed that at Spa. The race changed. Antonelli adapted. The lead changed. Mercedes recovered. Ferrari's opportunity depended on the race remaining inside a narrow window. Mercedes could survive outside that window. That is the difference between vulnerability and control. And Hamilton's weekend revealed another layer of Ferrari's problem.